With us now, former director of the CBO and former advisor to the McCain presidential campaign and president of the American Action Forum, Douglas Holtz-Eakin in the Hill. Douglas says, quote, the Senate budget is a bad choice for America. At least they get a budget. Give them credit.
Credit where credit is due.
In 4 years, credit where credit is due, we can at least start the debate.
I think that's the biggest part, to be honest. You know, there are these two now very different visions for the future, and at least we know what the Senate's going to put their votes behind. And
regular order, and it's so I salute the Democrats for finally doing that. Let's talk about long-term debt.
Long-term debt?
Well, long-term debt, as Keynes said, in the end, we're all dead anyway.
I'm interested in short-term debt.
Short-term debt, yeah, exactly. But when we talk about long-term debt, there is, of course, an ongoing debate. Certainly, I've had it with Paul Krugman. I know you have as well, but Paul Krugman says it doesn't matter. And yet, we have grown up hearing, believing, reading that whenever countries get to 90%, when their debt is 90% of GDP, it has an impact. And when I was on Charlie Rose's show debating Paul Krugman, Charlie Rose said...
Great performance, by the way.
Thank you so much. Charlie Rose said, okay, so it is bad for us, right, when it gets over 90%. He said, oh, no, that's no problem at all. Who's right?
You're right. This is not a matter of whose intellect is bigger and more powerful. This is a matter of the data. I mean, all you got to do is look at the historical record, and countries that get too much debt grow more slowly than countries that look the same, otherwise have the same approach to economic policy and have less debt. So it's a problem.
What studies back that up?
The canonical study is this famous book by Ken Rogoff and Carmen Reinhardt called This Time It's Different, 8 Centuries of Financial Folly. And the truth is we're not that new or different. The things the United States has done and is in the midst of doing have been done before, and they don't work out well.
But Douglas, why can't we have simultaneously a very robust debate on tax reform? I mean, that's sitting out there, and no one is moving on it, and everyone is very unhappy with the tax code as it currently exists. Yeah. And there are some opportunities there to pick up some additional revenue. But at the same time, it would send a signal, I think, across the entire spectrum of the country that maybe they can get something done.
I completely agree with you. I guess I'd turn the question around. You're an experienced observer of these things. Why can't we have this? Because the Bowles-Simpson Commission, which people know lots about, I thought the major message of that was the route to higher revenues through tax reform. So let's go do it. And that's a political statement as well as an economic policy statement, but we're trapped.
I don't know why the president just doesn't reach out and say, okay, we're having trouble with all these other issues, but this is one in which we can all gather at the same place and get something done.
But I mean, isn't the argument about what to do with the revenue once you've closed the loopholes and to some degree had the reform? I mean, that's where everyone sort of breaks. The president is saying it's not. Some of it should be used to lower. Some of it should go back into the government, and some of it could be used to lower top tax rates.
So there are. I mean, really two different issues here. Number one is where do you spend your political capital? And the president seems utterly unwilling to spend his political capital on getting a good tax reform, and we can debate why. The second is, Washington loves to talk about taxes. I've been there a long time now, and taxes go up, down, sideways. Spending's the problem, and until we talk about spending, it doesn't matter what revenue you get. You've got to fix the spending problem.
What's your response to Nancy Pelosi says we don't have a spending problem? Actually, you've got Steny Hoyer says we do have a spending problem. Paul Krugman saying we don't have to worry about deficits for the next decade. We don't have to really worry about Medicare until 2025. This is something that's just really sort of bubbled up on the left over the past 3 or 4 months. We call it debt deniers here. What's going on here?
I've been saying the same thing for 10 years since I was at the CBO. So the facts haven't changed. If you look at the numbers, spending grows at rates that you cannot tax your way out of, that you can't grow your way out of, that the only thing you can do is actually get your arms around those programs. And what it's come down to is the recognition that we have to do something different in Medicare. We have to do something different in Medicaid. We have to fix the Social Security system on its own merits. And this is really a fight about how to save the social safety net. And the sad part for me is there shouldn't be a fight about how to save it, but there shouldn't be a fight about whether to save it or not. And that's what it's turned into. Yeah. The deniers are stopping us from fixing programs that are a disservice to Americans. That's the problem.
Well, we find on both sides they're actually afraid to say exactly what they would do because, I guess, of the political implications. Having said that, we don't seem to be able to do anything preventative in this country. We always have to, are we going to have to wait for catastrophe in order to rectify this problem, and what will that catastrophe be?
I think we have two catastrophic futures. The good news story is one where we have broken politics for a long time. We have the kind of performance we've seen in the economy in recent years. We muddle along and everyone's frustrated. That's the good news scenario. The bad news scenario is where we actually literally don't fix it and the international lending community says enough. We see sharp spike in interest rates and we relive 2008.
Can I just ask a question, though, as conservatives especially focus on the issue of the deficit and what we're going to do about it, and it becomes a very important sort of rallying cry. I mean, where was that rhetoric when we were getting involved in 2 wars and paying for them on a credit card and also having 2 major tax cuts put in place? I mean, the Iraq War is one of the first wars where we haven't had a war tax. And so where was that fiscal responsibility a decade ago?
Missing. And I'm the wrong person to ask about this because I said famously in budget circles, you know, that's a big crowd, in 2003 that the party's over, people get it, we're not going to spend any more money, and 10 years later, of course, I was dead wrong.
Right, Medicare Part D.
So, you know, we lost our rudder somewhere, and I blame economists to some extent because we've preached this notion that somehow balanced budgets are unimportant, and that's something that America actually stuck to, lived by, and it's served America well for 200 years, and since then we've developed big problems.
Well, there was also an illusion that the war would pay for itself because we'd get access to Iraqi oil very quickly and it would all be resolved within 6 months and they'd be up and running, when everyone who had been in Baghdad, and I'd been there on a lot of occasions before the war began, knew how broken the country was. Let me ask you.
I mean, here's the key, and we've seen these debates before. Anytime someone uses that phrase, pay for itself, write that down, not true.
But give me your assessment about what's going on with the dysfunction in Washington on the fiscal and monetary matters, and at the same time the American economy is beginning to lift off. We seem to be on parallel tracks. The economy itself, is it built on a solid foundation, do you think, or are people just investing because they don't have any other place to put their money at the moment?
The U.S. is still the largest, strongest economy on the globe. I mean, there's lots of reasons to be optimistic, and I fundamentally am, and we are, despite bad policy, seeing the economy dig its way out of what was a very bad recession. So that's the good news, and this year the upside hope is the housing market genuinely recovers, and that's a real way to get better growth. But, you know, the bad news is the Fed is being held hostage by a Congress and an administration that can't get anything done, and it will continue to print money because it feels like it has to do something, but it's not working very well. So really all roads lead to let's fix the debt, and until we balance budgets, until we get serious about that, the Fed's not going to be able to fix it.
All right, Douglas Holtz-Eakin, thank you so much. Tom Brokaw, thank you as well. And Alex Wagner, we'll see you at noon today on
What do you have at noon?
We got Doug's back.
Yes!
You just can't shake them.
You put them right here.
It's like a shadow. Follows us around all day.
Smart. All right, well, thank you very much. On tomorrow's show, we have the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen